At the end of Professor MTH's excellent series on the Book of Job, he closes by saying, "Whatever the Book of Job is, I've shown what it is not. It is not a testament to God's amazing love in amazingly difficult circumstances." Now, I like Professor MTH's choice of words when he says, "whatever the Book of Job is," because I agree that it is a difficult book to make sense of, at least as the story is presented in the Bible. In this video, however, I'm going to present my reasons for why I say the Book of Job can be easy to make sense of if we think of it as composed by a minimum of two separate authors who are telling two very different stories and who had very different ideas about the nature of God. Now, I'll call these people Authors 1 and Authors 2. Author 1, as I see it, wrote a relatively short tale about Satan's bet with God, that pain and suffering will make even the most righteous man abandon his faith and curse God. And this test is carried out on a man named Job, and when Job still doesn't curse God, even after being afflicted with great tragedies, the tale concludes with God rewarding Job by doubling his previous fortune. So Author 1 writes from this theistic perspective that tells us of a God that cares for us, rewards us for loyalty and good behavior. Now, it seems to me that a separate author, who I'm calling Author 2, wrote that long middle section, which is Job's observations, or complaints rather, about life's injustices and God's indifference. And the conclusion of this story is God's overpowering speech from the whirlwind. So Author 2 writes from something of a deist perspective that tells us that even though there may be a God, this God apparently doesn't care that much about justice or suffering, may not care that much about humans one way or another, and as a general rule, doesn't speak to us. And if this God were to speak to us, it would only be to tell us that God is incomprehensible to humans. So we shouldn't even bother trying. Now, I will admit there are a few sentences in the last chapter, that is chapter 42, which don't fit neatly into this multi-author theory. I use the word theory, of course, in the layman's sense of the word. Anyway, I see these few sentences in chapter 42 as transition passages that attempt to try to tie the two stories together. But these passages are brief, and I'll save my discussion for them at the end of part 5 of this video series. All right, now, whether Author 2 came upon Author 1's story and expanded it by inserting this middle section, or whether these were just two totally different stories combined by a third author, I can't say. And I can't say because I'm not aware of any physical evidence whatsoever for this theory. That is, I'm not aware of any ancient pre-biblical documents that tell these stories separately. So the only evidence I'll be able to present is from the Book of Job itself. Its clashing storylines, or at least what I see as its clashing storylines and its clashing philosophies. So I'm going to start with Author 1's story. This starts out with God admiring a prosperous, righteous, faithful man named Job. Satan comes along and says Job's loyalty to God is based on nothing more than Job's good fortune. If Job were to lose his wealth and his family, Job would also lose his loyalty to God and just curse him. So God says, well, in effect, well, let's try it. Let's see. The actual quote is, "The Lord said to Satan, behold, he is in your hand." Job 1, verse 12. And in Job 1, verse 16, we learn that God even lends Satan the fire of God so that Satan can carry out this experiment by killing Job's thousands of animals, killing Job's servants, and killing Job's 10 children. In response, Job just gives the famous and stoic reply, "Naked came I out of my mother's womb, naked shall I return. The Lord gave, the Lord hath taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord." Job 1, verse 21. So God seems to have won the bet. But instead of dropping the matter, Satan continues to toy with God and tempts God into further abusing Job by suggesting that if bodily torment were added, well then Job would surely curse God. So without hesitation, God gives in to the dare, gives Satan his blessings, so to speak, to cover Job with painful boils from head to toe. That's in Job 2, verse 67. And Job still doesn't curse God. So if you just skip over the next 40 chapters, if you just leap from Job chapter 2, verse 10, right to 42, verse 12, then the story comes to a swift fairy tale ending as God rewards Job for his loyalty by blessing Job with new riches, doubling Job's number of animals, and giving Job a new set of children. And this time, Job's daughters are apparently more attractive than his original daughters, since this new group is described as being the prettiest in the land. And that's Job 42, verse 15. And the last two sentences tell us that Job lives happily ever after, or at least for 140 years. No mention of the afterlife, of course, because this is the Old Testament. That's a topic I discuss in my 5.4 series of videos. Anyway, When told in this extremely abbreviated way, the story does have a coherence to it. Now, there's a clear beginning and a middle and an end. On the other hand, there's nothing memorable or profound about this abbreviated version. It's just a simplistic tale that tells us, well, that yes, we may face hardships, but as long as we live an upright life and worship God and stay loyal to Him, God will reward us and everything will work out just fine in the end. And in the stripped-down form, not only is it simplistic, I would even say it's a weak story, because if we're to presume that the God in this tale is benevolent and all-knowing and all-powerful, I see the story as failing in all those areas. To be continued in Part 2.